This story is lesson for those children who loved their parents' property as much their parents. So always respect or love your parents because parents is the most costly or beautiful gift given by God. It started with the faintest crackle of autumn leaves scraping across the driveway. Small, brittle sounds that Myra had always loved. But that year, the air felt different, thicker, like something unseen was slowly tightening around her life without her noticing, until suddenly it was too late. She turned the kettle off before it whistled and shuffled toward the dining room window, watching as her eldest daughter, Karen, stepped out of her car with that stiff smile she'd perfected over the last few months. Myra pressed two fingers to her temple, pretending to think. She'd been practicing this. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm sorry. My hearing's been funny lately. Come inside." Karen exchanged a tired, rehearsed look with her brother, Luke, who trailed behind. They entered with the soft urgency of people who didn't intend to stay long unless they were getting what they came for. "What's that smell?" Luke asked, glancing toward the kitchen. "I burned the toast again," Myra said with a laugh that almost sounded real. "Old age, you know." Karen's eyes flicked immediately to Luke, but she didn't say anything. Not yet. They talked about small things. Rain forecast, grocery prices, the neighbor's new dog. But Myra waited for it. Every visit had begun the same way for weeks now. Pleasant and warm on the surface, until the real reason arrived like a cold draft. "So," Karen finally said, sliding the folder out of her purse and onto the table, "so we were thinking maybe it's time you let us help you handle some of your responsibilities?" "Responsibilities?" Myra said, tilting her head slightly and squinting as though the word took longer to process. "Mom," Luke cut in gently, "we just worry about you living alone in a big house. Bills, taxes, repairs, it's a lot." "And the stress isn't good for you," Karen added, her voice honeyed but hollow. "You forget things. You told me the other day you misplaced your checkbook for a week." "Yes," Myra wanted to say, "because I hid it behind the laundry detergent to make you believe this story." But she only blinked slowly, like a woman trying to dig through fog. "Well, maybe so," she whispered. Karen folded her hands like an attorney ready for closing arguments. "If you sign this transfer of property management, Luke and I can make decisions for the house, just until things feel easier for you." "Could you leave those here? I want to think." "Oh, of course," Karen said, too quickly. She'd expected a signature today. As they left, Myra watched them walk down the driveway, stiff backs and purposeful steps. Her eyes sharpened the moment their car disappeared. She reached underneath the dining table, behind the crossbar, and pulled out the tiny black voice recorder, still running. She clicked it off and exhaled. One more piece for the puzzle. It had begun innocently enough, first with gentle reminders, then light scolding, then quiet criticism of her memory, her judgment, her decisions. A nudge here, a comment there. She'd always thought emotional manipulation was something that happened to other people, to lonely grandparents or vulnerable adults with no one to advocate for them. But now it was happening in her own home, from her own children, the very ones she had raised with scraped knees and bedtime stories. She didn't know when the shift began. Maybe after her husband died and she became the last barrier between her children and whatever future they imagined with the estate. Or maybe when Karen's divorce drained her savings. Or when Luke got fired from his temporary job 2 years earlier and started floating excuses like driftwood. But she did know one thing. They underestimated her. For weeks, Myra practiced looking forgetful. She asked neighbors to repeat themselves, left cabinets open, paused mid-sentence as if searching for a lost word. She even let her coffee overboil once just to add realism. And each time her children came, she made sure the recorder was on, hidden in a place they would never think to check, because they thought she was losing her grip on reality. Nights were the hardest. When the lights dimmed and her brain slowed down, she'd feel the weight of everything she was recording. Her own children's manipulative tones, their manufactured concern, their carefully phrased suggestions that she should not be alone, that she should rely on them, that she should sign over just a little control so they could protect her. It broke pieces of her heart she didn't know still existed. But each recording made her spine a little straighter. Each recording reminded her she wasn't imagining it. Each recording was a weapon. The following week, Karen returned, this time with a sympathetic smile so exaggerated it felt theatrical. "Mom," she said before even sitting down, "your neighbor told me you called her twice last night to ask if it was Thursday." "Did I?" Myra said, brows furrowed, though she could have recited her entire Tuesday schedule from memory. "Yes," Karen said, lowering her voice, "and it scared her." "Oh," Myra whispered. "I'm sorry." "It's okay. We just need to help you. You're overwhelmed." Behind her back, Myra's thumb pressed the small button on the recorder clipped beneath her cardigan hem. "I was thinking we should move you somewhere safer, a place with supervision, just until you're stable." Myra widened her eyes slowly. "Supervision?" "Yes," Karen said. "Like a home." The word stung, but Myra swallowed it and let her shoulders slump. "If you think so." Karen smiled softly, touching her arm. "We just want to protect you." Liar. Every day after that, the pressure increased. More concerns, more accidental comments about her poor memory, more hints that she should give them legal authority to handle things. Luke began visiting more frequently, always with a nervous energy that made Myra suspect he was the one truly pushing things now. But Myra kept recording. She recorded when Karen snapped, "Mom, you already told me that twice today," though Myra had not. She recorded when Luke muttered, "You're making this harder than it needs to be," after she asked an innocent question. She recorded when they argued in her living room, thinking she was asleep in her chair, about selling the house, splitting the profit, and how if she signs over rights, it'll all be easier. She recorded every emotionally cruel detail. Late one night after they left, she pulled out her notebook, the one hidden in the hollow of an old dictionary, and began listing every recording by date, time, and content summary, exactly how her lawyer instructed in their first secret appointment. He had listened to one clip and placed a steady hand on hers. "Myra, what they're doing is coercive, psychological manipulation, and if they're planning to force guardianship or power of attorney through falsified claims, we'll need proof. Keep recording, don't confront them. Let them think you're slipping." So she did. She became smaller around her children, softer, slower, the perfect performance of frailty. And yet, inside, her resolve hardened like steel. One afternoon, during a visit that began friendly and turned sour, as they always did, Karen's patience snapped. "Mom, you can't keep living like this. It's irresponsible. You're forgetting so much, and it's dangerous." "I'm doing my best," Myra said weakly, blinking slowly. "No, you're not. You're making excuses. This is why people lose their homes, because they can't be honest about needing help." Luke sat stiffly beside her. "Just sign the papers, Mom. This isn't that complicated." I don't know?" Karen leaned in, voice icy. "You don't know because your memory is going. You need us." Her throat tightened, not from their pressure, but from the poison in their tone. She had once imagined her children would care for her the way she cared for her own mother, gently, with patience. Instead, she was a target. "You could lose the house if you don't sign," Luke added. "Is that what you want?" Myra froze at that word, lose, not because it frightened her, but because the recorder caught every syllable. They didn't visit for a week after that. Perhaps they sensed that she was resisting. Perhaps their lawyer told them they needed more evidence of her incompetence before filing for control. Whatever the reason, the silence was a small blessing. But the real storm came 3 weeks later. A knock on her door, 2 sets of footsteps, and a court summons. Petition for full financial guardianship due to cognitive decline. Cognitive decline they had fabricated with carefully crafted moments and manipulated conversations. False statements submitted as evidence, exaggerations, lies. Her hands shook as she held the papers, not from fear, but from rage, so deep it felt molten. "They think they've won," her lawyer said when she arrived at his office. "Good." He explained the plan. Myra nodded, every ounce of her ready for battle. The court hearing was scheduled 2 weeks later. Those 2 weeks crawled by slowly, but Myra filled each day with purpose, charging batteries, labeling recordings, organizing files, and writing down every detail she remembered. Her lawyer had hired an independent geriatric psychologist to evaluate her memory, honestly, and the report returned flawless. At 75, Myra was sharper than many 50-year-olds. The morning of the hearing was cold and windy, the kind of day her husband used to call truth weather. She dressed in her nicest navy blouse, brushed her silver hair back neatly, and grabbed her purse with the recorder inside, every file backed up on a flash drive her lawyer held. When she walked into the courtroom, Karen and Luke were already seated at the petitioner's table with their attorney. They turned, expecting to see a confused, fragile old woman in need of rescue, but Myra walked in steady, spine straight, eyes clear. Karen's smile faltered. Luke shifted uncomfortably. Their attorney stood and greeted the judge. "Your Honor, we're here today because Mrs. Alden's children have grave concerns about her declining cognitive state." "Objection to the implication of unverified decline," Myra's lawyer cut in, "and we have evidence to present." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Karen's attorneys started with their rehearsed narrative: forgetfulness, confusion, risky behavior, concerns for her well-being. Then came the psychologist's report, provided by both sides. Then came the turning point. "My client," Myra's lawyer said calmly, "has recordings of many interactions with her children over the last 3 months." Karen's head snapped toward him. "Recordings?" Luke's face drained of color. "Yes," the lawyer continued, "and these recordings paint a very different picture. They reveal patterns of manipulation, emotional coercion, and attempts to take control of Mrs. Alden's property through intimidation." Karen stood up. "That's not... We didn't... Mom, you recorded us?" Myra looked at her daughter, her expression soft but unshakable. "Yes, dear. I had to." The judge motioned for the audio to be played. The first clip began. Karen's voice, sharp and impatient, pushing Myra to sign over decision-making rights. Then Luke saying, "This isn't that complicated, just sign." The courtroom fell silent except for their own voices betraying them. Clip after clip played. Karen scolding her, Luke threatening financial disaster, both belittling her memory, dismissing her confusion, and twisting her words. At one point, the recording captured Karen muttering, "If she signs the papers, we can finally sell this place." Myra held her breath as it played, watching Karen wilt. When the last clip ended, the judge looked at them with quiet, simmering disappointment. "This is deeply troubling. Not only is there no evidence of cognitive impairment, but there is significant evidence of coercion and manipulation. This court denies the petition for guardianship in full. Additionally," she said, turning to Myra, "you may pursue further legal action if you wish." Karen whispered, "Mom, please?" But Myra simply stood, gathering her purse. "I hope someday," she said quietly, "you understand what you almost cost me." Outside the courtroom, the crisp wind rushed against her face, cold and alive. Her lawyer handed her the flash drive. "You did everything right, Myra." She nodded. "I had to. I wasn't ready to lose my home." In the days that followed, Karen and Luke sent messages, apologies mixed with excuses, pleas for forgiveness tangled with justifications. But Myra didn't respond. Not because she hated them, but because she needed distance to breathe, to rebuild pieces of herself that their betrayal had cracked. She returned to her routines: morning tea, evening TV, flowers on the windowsill. Neighbors waved more often now, aware something had happened, even if they didn't know what. She felt lighter. Not happy, not yet, but freer. Weeks later, Karen arrived unannounced, standing awkwardly on the doorstep. "Mom," said Karen softly, "can I just talk?" Myra looked at her daughter's face. Not the manipulative expression she had worn for months, but a vulnerable one, unfamiliar and painfully human. "I'm not signing anything," Myra said before opening the door wider, "but you can come in." Karen nodded quickly, eyes damp. I just want to say I'm sorry." Myra sat across from her, listening. Karen spoke of stress, fear, financial trouble, and the misguided belief that taking control would somehow solve everything. It wasn't an excuse. It couldn't be. But it was an insight. Myra didn't record this conversation. She didn't need to. When Karen left, Myra stood in the quiet living room, sunlight warming her hands through the window. The house, her house, felt safe again, like it had wrapped its old wooden arms around her and whispered, "You're still here. You're still strong." And she was. But strength didn't mean bitterness. It meant surviving. It meant knowing her worth. It meant fighting back when she had to. The next day, she called her lawyer. "I don't want to press charges," she said. "I just want them to understand I'm not fragile, and I won't be bullied." "You already proved that," he said. Months passed, and Myra found a new rhythm, one that was peaceful but more aware. She still invited her children to holidays, still answered their calls, but she did it with boundaries now, with clarity, with the understanding that love didn't mean blind trust. One afternoon, she placed the voice recorder in a drawer, her secret guardian, and smiled as she closed it. She hoped never to need it again, but she kept it anyway, because this chapter of her life had taught her something powerful. She was not weak. She was not incompetent. She was not alone. She was Myra Alden, daughter, wife, mother, widow, and warrior in her own quiet way. And her home, the place she built with decades of memories, laughter, tears, and love, was still hers. Not because her children allowed it, but because she fought for it and won.